Alright, so I have here the live stream. I think I have 2 viewers already. Let's talk about the Black Friday. I thought it was tomorrow, but it is now already here. I'm not sure, I'm not very familiar with live streaming on YouTube. But so bear with me, so I try to manage everything. Right now I'm looking at the chat, but you don't see that. I'm looking at the chat. So if every now and then I will take a look there, and if you have a question, then I will see it. Maybe not immediately, but okay. Then I go here to Blender, and I have several products. There's one product. I start with the most magical one, and that is plugs from a Mechmachine. So Mechmachine, that is one of those add-ons that is really magical to me. I don't use it every day, but I should play more with it, but there are so many things to do. So I will add, let's add a UV sphere. You find the UV sphere over here. By the way, this is EEVEE Express. I will tell more about it later. I will check. I have to close here something. I don't see a question yet. So we have here then the sphere. I'll grab it up a little bit. Let's give that a material. Just a basic material for now. I shade it smooth. And let's check if we can get the plugs to work. So I press Y, and I forgot, I think my plugs are on here. So my library is a little bit messed up, but if you install it, then it will all be okay. Let's check this out. So I have here one plug. So if you're not familiar with plugs for Mechmachine, this is really, really nice. So I have here a plug, and I select first plug, then the sphere, I press Y, and simply press plug. So what we see now, we can adjust it a little bit, maybe contain or not. And always press normal transfer, because you want to transfer the normals of the sphere onto the plug. Let's see what happens if we use the deformer, and now it looks really nice. So I see a little bit of a lower resolution of a low poly here, it looks like. Usually you don't need offset or rotation, just in sometimes when there is something wrong with the face, you can do that. You can turn up the plug precision, but then often it doesn't matter much. Let's take a look over here, and we see how well that is done. So I see a little bit of deformation over here, but overall it's pretty nice. And if you go into the how are we going to the cap? I think this one. Now I'm confused because this is slightly different arranged, and here it is. Let's check, and we see that the normals are very well done, so that there is no distortion of the normals. So that's pretty cool. Let's try out a few more. Another plug. Let's see, this one is also nice. Press Y, plug. It's deformed here, but we use the deformer. and that is already very nice done. Let's go over here, and that looks very good. So that is plugs for Mechmachine. Now we can go over to, let's give this a material. So here I have my EEVEE Shaders. I will tell more about it later. Let's give this. We go inside and let's check what UV unwrapping is doing. And looks like let's try this then. So let's take a look at EEVEE Express. So I will explain what you see here. So here we have, this is the probe that is called the light probe, the reflection cube map, and then we have here irradiance volume. I believe that it is irradiance volume. This is a cube for indirect lighting. So what that does is that if you don't have this cube, then your scene will be somewhere in a dark space. So we open the EEVEE Express here. Then we change this cube to textured, and we see it has this material. It's just like normal gray. You can also change this, and then if you are going to bake, let's try that out. So we set the camera here. Let's say make it very red. No, make it very green. Then if we are going to bake, then we should see, I have to go in here of course, then we see the indirect light is now green. So I'll put this usually on. So let's check if there are any questions meanwhile. No questions. So I'll come back later. So that is the cube for indirect lighting, but you want to put it on a wire so you can watch through the cube. Then let's go over here. So we discussed this one, and this is the backdrop. If you scale it up or down, the cubes are parented to that. And this cube, you want to keep it as small as possible so that the lights are fitting it. So the light is reflecting to the cube and gives them indirect light when you're going to bake. Let's see what kind of options we have in the EEVEE Express. So if you have an empty scene, you can add backdrops. I added this one already. You can add a 3-point light. That is over here. You see a 3-point light. So I have it already in the scene. So that is this one over here. And we can add smoke also. Let's add smoke, and we can change the color. Go in camera view, and then we see this. We can add the global shader. Let's do that. That's very nice. Add global shader, and now you see that we have some materials with several colors. I'll come back to that later, and we can set up compositor nodes. So we can close this now because we have everything in the scene. Then we have spot rig controls. The spot rig, that is the big one. That so you can select the light position. You can do this. You can select the focus that has use when they are all a spot, and then you set the focus to. And you see it better here. You can set the focus, and if you select both, you can move the whole rig to the left, or you can rotate it like that. The spot rig has also presets. Let's turn off first the 3-point light control. I turn this down. We go to the spot rig control, and then what did I do? I forgot. Let's check. I think I have to grab a little bit of coffee. Spot rig control. Oh yeah, now I see it. So we have here some color presets. Orange, teal. They are a little bit based on HDRIs. Not all of them. For example, Rainbow is experimental. Dam Road is an HDRI by Greg Sal. Also Tiber Island. And you can play around with that. So that is the spot rig control. Then we have the 3-point light control. Let's put this to 1000. Run it a little bit up. We can see, we can adjust the color over here. And let's make the fill. Let's make this. Now we want to change the camera setting, so we press lock to view. We can do like that. We can up depth of field, like so, and we can change this. Then the global shader, let's check that out. So we'll turn off lock to view, so unlock to view. Can turn around. Let's add some objects into the scene. Let me see what we have here. Let's add some box cutters. Just this one. That's not so high poly. Just because I'm streaming at the moment, that might be an issue. Let's get rid of the smoke, because with smoke then it's hard to select objects. So I copy this a few times, like so. Now I choose Ctrl L. I copy the material. Ctrl L, copy material. Ctrl L. And the backdrop, let's get the backdrop, we copy the material as well. So now it's getting interesting. So I go back to my EEVEE Express, log to view, something like this. We get rid of this out of sight, unlock the view, and now if we go to the global shader, we have here some color presets. Let's get some more light into the scene. I select all lights of the spot rig control, I press Alt and I bump up the light a little bit and make this a little bit better. I'll check if I see a question over here. So if you have a question, you can ask a question. Then back to the global shader. If you go over there, then we have some more presets. These are grabbed from my movies, color picked. So this way you can assign colors just with one click. Then you can select the global shader, and if you go to the object properties, you see a few custom properties over here, and then with one slide you can make everything metallic, more metallic, or bump up the value, and you can even bump it up more, but then you have to be careful that you're not breaking the laws. But this material is quite dark, so that's okay. Let's try another one. Brave again. We can turn down the saturation. Or let's try this one. So we had a lot. We have the render settings. You can bake the two kinds of render settings here. This one is a little bit lighter, this a bit darker. You see that everything will change here. A little moment, I have to check. And then you have the documentation. If you press that, you open your web browser and you see all the documentation of the EEVEE Express. And you can also add additional lights. and you can adjust the light over here. So you have a lot of settings in one panel. Usually you need to go over here, go over all kinds of places, but here you have everything in one scene. Oh yes, and then I show you also the compositing nodes. A while ago we pressed on compositor nodes, and that means if you go to the compositor, you see that if we press Shift A on the group, you can find all these nodes. So if you want to add a little bit more ambient occlusion, then you can add that over here, and you can put more or less ambient occlusion. This is for color management. There are several presets. Preset number 3 is very nice. That makes the darker values more blue and the highlights more towards orange or red. You might want to try that out. Then we have a frame. You can add a frame and you can play with the normal FX. I think I cannot show that now because I'm streaming, because if I'm going to render, then that will interrupt the stream. But to show you how you can use it, you plug the normal in here, and then if you go inside, then you can play around with this one, and you can play around with value. So let's say I put the value lower, I go inside the node, and then for example everything what is down, that will become darker. Or maybe you have to put it like this. So that is the EEVEE Express. Let's check what we have more. Oh yes, we have some organic models. So I start a new scene. I start a new scene, and then I go to my assets, and there I have something like organic models. Organics. So these models are all made with physics, particles, metaballs, cloth, etc. And this one is made with just multi-extrude. That is the only one I really modeled. But for the rest, these are not modeled. These are more or less procedural or generative. I'm not sure how you call it, but I call them organic models because there is something organic behind it. I found them quite mesmerizing because if you model yourself and you're going to sculpt, it's very hard to get kind of ratios in a way that it is pleasing to the eye. For example, this cave. Let's open this cave. It doesn't have nice material at the moment, so let's go back to the EEVEE Shaders and let's see if we have something there. Let's check for old stone. Then I will unwrap it. Let's try this one. That looks a bit better, but it looks a bit glossy. So let's go inside. Yeah, it's way too glossy, so let's fix that. And then I show you also the EEVEE shaders, how that works. So I'm going to the editor, and this is one of the EEVEE shaders. It's quite clear because you see all kinds of frames, and it explains already a little bit what it does. Let's close this one. We go back in here, and let's also put a light. Add additional light, area light. No, I want to change to point light. Point light, point. Let's go in top view. Press the dot so we go to the light. I can see where it is. Let's make this nice cyan and bump it a little bit up. For now this is just one light, so it is a little bit boring, but we have to add more lights later. Now press Ctrl-Alt-0. Then let's change this material. Let's just look at the material. So this is one of the EEVEE shaders. We have here texture mapping. We can distort the UV. You see it here. And we can also distort another one. So there are two coordinates, two textures. And this is quite strange because we have here two normal maps, and we don't see any diffuse map, just two normal maps. And the trick is that we can combine two normal maps, and from that we can derive the albedo color or diffuse. Maybe we can take a look outside if we see a little bit better. So two normal maps, and with some tricks we make an albedo map out of it. You can set the strength like that. A good thing about EEVEE shaders is that in Blender, if we use bump maps, it works quite slow. Often you will see shaders are compiling or something, a little message over here, and takes a long time. So for EEVEE, if you want to use EEVEE, then you better use normal maps as faster, and it looks better also. So then you can add on top of that, so we are combining two normal maps, and we can play with the mapping. So the textures doesn't look too tiled. Often when we use textures, free textures or so, then we see tiling, but that is not the case quickly in here, because we are combining two maps, and then you don't see tiling that much. On top of that, we can distort our textures, and on top of that we can also add variation to the albedo. I show you here how that works. I get rid of this one so we get a little bit more space. So check, what is this? So on top of that we can make variations on the albedo. So that has nothing to do with the textures, just on top of that. So that's a little bit the trick or the philosophy behind EEVEE shaders. We use normal maps, and we use a lot of things so that we don't get tiling. Let me see if there are any questions. I don't see any questions, I believe. So, but if you have a question, just be free to ask. Then, yeah, we can look into the cave. We were talking actually about the organics. Let's take a look at that again. So it's a little bit hard to set up the lights in the cave because EEVEE Express is designed to show your model outside the object, not in, but you still can do it, but that asks a little bit more work. Maybe let's try out a few more. I'll show you another EEVEE because oh yeah, this is the latest I worked on. So you don't see any tiling, I believe. Not a repetition. If we, for example, I show you, let's go over here. So this is what I mean with the tiling problem with other textures. So let's here, then just we need the views just for to show you. Then we go in Addon mode. Let's bump that down. And now with normal textures we see a tiling effect like that. So that is very hard for the EEVEE shaders to get that because of all those tricks to reduce tiling. And here I have a meatball, also very nice. Oh, but that doesn't look like a meatball because we have to do the UV editor, select all, boom, no, and then oh, we have something like meat. I think most shaders, they look glossy because I think they changed something in Blender. I think the glossy settings, if you know that, and let me know, but we can easily adjust that. So this is another shader, another type, but the same idea. This is a little bit ridiculous because we are using a lot of textures in this case. A while ago we have seen we are only using 2 normal maps and we got a material out of that. But in this case we are using 6 textures. That sounds like way too much, but the trick is that if we make another material with the same textures, we can adjust our settings so that it is a completely different material. So we can make a lot of materials with the same textures, so you only have to import these 6 textures and you can make a big variety of that, because you can map them, you can store them, you can change the colors, you can add a bevel variation, and adjustments like that, and change everything in the principled shader. Let's see how we can get rid of the glossy look. So we can find roughness here, so we have to put that higher. So, and we have that fixed right now. I think it will be nice to add subsurface. That is already, yeah, let's add a little bit more. So you can imagine, you can make some nice meatballs out of this. Then we can, you see here, albedo variation. That is to reduce tiling, so you see more variation in the material. And we can play with the strength of each normal map. And we can distort the UVs. That is all for reducing tiling. So that is the philosophy behind the EEVEE shaders. So that is using bump maps and do a lot of things to prevent the tiling. Right? So no questions yet. Now we jump over then to another product. I have to check what I forgot what I have actually. So I go to my Blender Market. You don't see it, but I'm browsing here. I go to my products, and let's see. We had the organics asset pack. The material nodes add-on. Let's take a look at that. So I add a new scene. Let's add an object. Let's add a simple one, because we are streaming at the moment. Let's add this one. Then we remove the material because we are going to make a new material. Alright, then we open the, not here, we open the shader editor and we press new, we see this. So, and then we open the end panel, and no need for that. We just need to press Shift A. And you see here material nodes. Let's start with making a gold, but then a little bit more interesting. So we have here metal albedo values, and we see here gold. Well, that doesn't look like gold because we need to adjust this. Let's bump that into full metallic roughness, a little bit down. And I think that. So important is that you have good albedo values. Now this looks still a little bit boring, but we can add some variation to it. In the material nodes you see my favorite, the Varshad. So that means variation shader. And here's what I mean. So you see shaders compilation. A while ago in the EEVEE Shaders you didn't see that. And that is because I think because inside this node you see this one, and that takes a lot of power and Blender 2.8 and further to calculate that. So I think about changing over to normal maps, but then I have to reorganize things. But anyway, the Varshad is very nice. So what it does is it adds variation to the shader. We can make a variation in hue, a variation in saturation, and in value. Let's turn them all down first and take a look one by one what it is. So this was the normal shaders. If we press M, it looks the same. Then hue variation. So we see a little bit of variation in hue, and we can adjust the scale like that. So that makes it already a little bit more interesting. So this is the original, and this looks a tiny bit better because I believe every material in the real world it has some variation in hue. Let's put this just subtle like that. You don't see it, but it is there. Then not sure if we should do this, but let's bump that up so you can see it better. You see here. So, and if we combine that, and this for the value, if we put that down just a little bit, and we can scale it. Now we can also put this in the roughness, and we have here two settings for the roughness, so they are very high. Let's bring them a little bit down. I think the value is a little bit high. Yeah, like that. A little bit scale like that. Then we can also add the bump, a bump here, so that at the moment you do that, there's a shader compilation, but then after that you can just do this. Just a tiny bit, like that. So that looks way better than if you do this. First we had this, right? Now with the far shader we have that. And that is because we have no variation on all kinds of things like hue, saturation, the value, variation in roughness, and normal. So that is then very nice. Let's check if I see some questions over here. no questions yet. And be free to ask some questions because that's the chance. So then, but there is more to see in the material nodes. We can add some more ambient occlusion. Let's try that one. I'm not sure if you can see it here. I'm not sure if it is working. It works, yeah. And another thing is material nodes. There is the layer weight plus. Can add that here. It's doing the shader compilation. We didn't see this in the EEVEE shaders because the EEVEE shaders work all with normal maps. So if we turn the value down, what happens is that we see on the grazing angle it's getting darker. Not on the front, not on the front. See, on the facing angle it stays the same, but only on the grazing angles. So, and then we can set this. So then we start to get a nice gold material over here. We can bump up the roughness a little bit higher. And there is more in the material nodes. I think I cannot discuss everything, but just short. We have bricks colors, so I will show you what it is. So let's see if you have a procedural texture, you can plug it in here, and then you can plug this in the albedo, and these are albedo values for bricks, and there are several types of bricks, so that comes in handy. And you have a lot of more colors, let's say colors from the environment. Those are also color ramps. So the idea is you have a procedural texture, you plug it in here, you choose one of the color ramps, and that will turn the the albedo value or the colors of the procedural texture into colors of soil. Coral colors, I should make it like this, I think. But then you have sometimes a little bit gray, so then they are not that coral anymore. So if you mix two colors, sometimes in the middle it looks grayish. So that's why I decided to put it that way. Because coral they have very saturated colors. So fire, sky, so these are color picked, and grass. Sometimes I see grass and the albedo, the color of the grass is not really good. Sometimes I see colors like, I don't know, something like this, I think. These are the colors we can see on the street, on the beach. Right, let's check if I see a question. Not sure, I don't see a question yet. So then let's check what product I have else. We talked about the organics asset pack, the material nodes, EEVEE Express, and assets for level builder. Let's talk about that. That's really nice. So let's open a new scene. Don't save. Press N. Then all I have to, let's hide this one. Let's hide the EEVEE Express. Then let's make it full screen. Let me check if you can see it. Yes. So we press Shift Enter and then we get this pop-up here. Then we can add, for example, flooring. Let's start with this one. We grab it over here. And then you can click it everywhere. What I do is I turn on snapping, and I turn on increment absolute grip snap on that. So then if we press Alt D, press X, and then we can repeat like that. We can then grab things like that, Alt D on the Y axis, so it snaps all very nicely. Then Shift N, let's add a wall. A wall we like, for example, just a simple wall. Maybe like this. So Alt D on the X axis. So you see it snaps very well. So that's how the assets are designed, that they are snapping. And you can build a scene very quickly. You see, I'm using 200 MB, but that's probably for other reasons. Normally, when you start the scene very empty, then you will see something like 80 MB, or just it's really nothing in memory. Then we can build on like that. I'll show you what the assets there are in the assets for level builder. Here are kind of blocks, they all snap together. So for example, you can grab this and it will snap. They all have the same dimensions and heights. Then you have a few controls. Cylinder, you have fences over here. This one is nice to use, and this one also. And if you are using this one, you might want to use a Bevel modifier, I think. Let's check that out. So Alt D on the Y, no, on the X. Repeat a few times, and let's see. It seems you can add a Bevel modifier on it. Let's try that. Oh yeah. So do that a few times. That looks way better. You can select this and then Ctrl L and then copy modifiers. Then they all have the same modifiers. So you can build a scene, big scene, quite fast with the level builder. So I have floors, we have some furniture, but mostly you will use floors and walls. Maybe some railings every now and then. And this is also very handy to make objects, railings, steps, some stones, like that. So that is the assets for level builder. Still I don't see a question, maybe it is not working or something. So can I chat? No, nothing is wrong it seems. So then we jump over to the next product. we had organics as a pack. We had the material notes add-on, the EEVEE Express, assets for level builder, EEVEE Shaders. We had plugs from Mechmachine, and now insert for KITOPS. There has been a time I used KITOPS because, well, there are so many things you can do and try. Let's take a look if we can get that to work. Control N, new scene. Let's add a cube. Grab that here. Let's give that a material. No, we just make quickly a material. Base color, I like something like that. Then make it a tiny bit of metallic. Some think that materials are or metallic or not, but I believe we can mix it, because sometimes I go to a shop, I see a material, when I look at the toys, looks a little bit metallic, while it is not a metal. Okay, let's do this. Then I think we need to go to all my add-ons, enable KITOPS, and here we have the insert for KITOPS. So let's make a little bit more space over here. So we have a few. NMS stands for New Media Supply. We have 1 and 2. We have cutters and modifiers. No one. Let's check what we have there. There are quite some inserts to find. Yeah, let's try that one. A long time ago I used that. So, that works already very nice. I should use it a bit more. Let's try another one. Let's go for this one. Why is that? Let's go over here to the modifier stack. Okay. I thought there was an option that you want to have the Bevel modifier as latest. So there must be an option over here. Oh, right, maybe in the preferences. KITOPS, general. Oh, right. Sword Bevel. Yeah, right. Yeah. So that's it, I think. Let's try that again. Let's add one more time over here. Add insert. And now if we select the cube, and we see indeed the Bevel as latest. Oh, that's really nice. So let's check something more. What is this? Even more inserts. I love this one and this one. I designed them for plugs from Mechmachine, and then I converted them to insert for KITOPS. Let's go over here. Let's add this, my favorite one. Oh, that's really big. And then in KITOPS you can click on Smart, then you can select that. Only I'm a little bit confused, so does that work? No. I'm a bit confused about it. So what I usually do is I go inside the cube, cursor to selected, and then I check this one, selected to cursor, and then I have exactly where I want. So let's turn that off, and that really looks nice. There's also quite a good design is that, because they are working with Mechmachine, the plugs then, and that really needs a good design. Otherwise the plugs are not working very well. And so that's what I like to do. Cursor to selected, selection to cursor, turn that off, perfect. Alright, let's see if we have some questions over here. No, not yet. So if you have questions, then, oh yeah, here I see a question. Does addons make you fast or weak? Oh, that's a good question. Hey, yeah, I will talk about that. So the problem is when I start with addons, then you have all these addons. You cannot even see the first letter. So sometimes when you're looking for addons, you have to click all those, and it's really a disaster in Blender to find your addon, and sometimes it takes even more than 10 minutes. So then what I did was I make workspaces, and for each workspace you can filter your addons. So here on the layout there's the default workspace, and then I filter only the most important ones. For example, well, this is an addon I cannot switch off here, so I cannot turn it off, but the next one, asset management, is what I use quite often. It's a good addon. Then Bevel after Boolean. I don't use that much, but it is quite a magic addon. Then this is my EEVEE Express. This is what I use all the time. I use always EEVEE Express. Level Builder is handy to quickly build up a scene very fast. So the question was, let's go back. Question: does addons make you fast or weak? Oh, so yeah, how important is to understand the basics before directly approaching any? Well, I think there are addons that make your life easier. Let's check if I can find something. Well, what you need to know first, the basics, is to understand what the screen does. For example, you have the 3D view here. When you press N, you have addons over here. And you have the outliner here, and that you can get an object, select an object, and you can grab it, you can rotate it and scale it. So those things are important, and that you understand the outliner here. And the properties, that you have a general overview of the properties, what it is. So then a little bit of understanding of the render engine and settings, like those. And maybe let's see what more is important. here are the editor types. So we have now the 3D viewport, but important is this one, 3D viewport. Image editor, not necessarily. UV, maybe not. Compositor, maybe. No, that's not all that really important. So the most important is this 3D view, outliner, properties, and preferences. So if you manage that, like you understand, you can navigate through these things over here. If you have that, and then you can jump into add-ons. There are several add-ons that makes your life easier. For example, asset management. Let me see what you can start with. Yeah, EEVEE Express, but that's I might be biased. That's my own add-on, but yeah, for me it makes life easier because, for example, I don't have to, for example, bake direct. If you want to bake, you need to go over here, and then you need to go click that one, and then bake in direct lighting. So that is a little bit a hassle for a beginner to all those, to go to all these options while you have a lot of options in one panel, and there is documentation about it. Level builder. Yeah, it's okay to start with. Quad remesher, no, not yet. Mechmachine for beginners. If you start with Blender, I think there are maybe other add-ons. Let me see what we see here. Yeah, it depends a little bit what you want to do. Yeah, Bool tool, that's very handy, but it's built-in, it's free. Yeah, KITOPS is also nice. If you're a beginner, it's not too difficult. You can make things like that. Let me see a few more questions. All right. Yeah, you just check what add-ons are you understand already. All right, so I discussed all the products. I think that's it. So we talked about the organics asset pack, we talked about materials add-on, EEVEE Express, assets for level builder, EEVEE Shaders, insert for KITOPS, and plugs for Mechmachine. So then I think I have to say good. Oh yeah, thanks. Yeah, all right. Thank you too for the question. It was very nice. So then, yeah, I think you want to check. There is already sales on Black Friday, and that will also help. I have a website, it's called blenderaddons.org, and you can check over there. All right, now thanks for watching, and until the next time.